it's not yet in your Moodle. In your Moodle, you'll see the link to the Google Classroom and the Meet link. I think currently what I did was sent it to one of your group members and they put it in the WhatsApp chat, right? Hopefully by next week everything is smooth running. All right, on this I don't have my contact hours. I just have the contact hours for your lecture class, which is 2-hour lectures and 1-hour tutorial. I think your tutorial is on a Thursday, right? Can anybody confirm that?
I'm not seeing any tutorial on my timetable, sir. I'm only seeing the lecture.
You only seen a lecture for this evening, right?
Yes, sir. I don't see the tutorial in your time.
You don't, sir? How many hours you have on it for lecture? 2 hours?
Just the lecture session, sir.
Okay, so you are just seeing 2 hours for lecture? Correct.
Yes, sir. No tutorial.
All right. On my sheet here.
And the tutorial session that I am seeing,
yeah.
I have a class that is scheduled in that time as well, so I don't know.
Which time are you seeing on your timetable?
I think it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 5. But
yes.
You shouldn't be having a class. You can't produce a class.
No, sir. It is not there. The tutorial is not there in at all. And it's not for me alone. I spoke to somebody else in the Tuesday class and they're saying that they don't see any tutorial either. So I don't know. So it's not there.
Some in the Tuesday class have their tutorial right after the class, which is at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I think the system is still giving a lot of errors. Hopefully soon they'll update, make the necessary updates and you'll be able to see the tutorial session. But you are saying that you have a class at 5 o'clock.
I have a class in that time as well. So I mean the selections are confirmed, so I guess when they do their thing, it will iron out itself.
And probably shift it to another slot. All right, but for now, there is a 2 o'clock session on Tuesday. I'll be using the same link. It's the same link for both classes. And that is a Tuesday at 2 o'clock, right? For now, we won't be doing any tutorial. We'll actually be having other discussion in the tutorial time. But until they sort out the administrative part of the timetable, we just proceed as is, right? You can join the 2 o'clock session if you're able to do so. It's online and we can accommodate a number of persons in one session being it's online, so there is no restriction in you coming to the 2 o'clock tutorial session on Tuesday. All right? All right, so that's that in terms of lecture and tutorials. For persons who are aware, just before I move on, on my other G Suite, I am able to upload that image. Normally when I'm lecturing from home, doing online from home, because other persons are moving in the background, we know what homes is, right? But if I'm because at the time of this session, I'm actually doing it from home and not at school. Right, at school I would have my camera on, but at home I keep it off. And in spite of that, I need to ask them why I'm not able to add a profile picture. Right, so I need to find that out before next week, so I can add a profile picture to my G Suite account. All right, on screen you are seeing the module outline, right? Prerequisite, none, right? These are the recommended and reference texts, right? As seen, this will be uploaded to my G Suite Classroom as well, right? But for now, I'm just sharing on screen with you, all right? Some persons might have my number. You can call me if you have my number, but my the UTech number is there and my extension. because of what is going on now with the whole COVID and working situation. I am not in office some days, right? Most days. All right, so I share the my number with your group at some point next week. All right, so the module description. What is this module about? It's here, right, to give you a brief understanding what the module will cover. We'll look at the electrical system in facilities. And facility, they use the word facility to take care of residential, commercial, and industrial facilities, right? So whether it be a residential, meaning a home, right, a building, we're going to look at the systems. The systems are all the same, right? It's just a slight modification depending on the location and the type of building. We'll be looking at the plumbing system. We'll be looking at energy management criteria, right, such as sustainable energy and so forth. We'll be looking at the HVAC system. For persons who know, it's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, right? That's what HVAC is. We'll be looking at refrigeration. We'll be looking at fire protection systems, that's the alarm systems and so on. We'll be looking at the mechanical components inside a facility, right? Indoor quality control that will come under building management and sustainability. And we'll look at life safety, and which will come under the whole aspect of safety, what safety is, right? We term it life safety because we want to preserve life. That's what safety does. And in any situation, it preserves lives, right? All right, so we move on to our plan for this semester, which is tentative to change because COVID, because of this whole COVID situation, we have to stay fluid, right? Week one, which was last week for you, we weren't able to cover anything. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to keep track of these weeks because we start in the middle of the week. The week starts on a Wednesday, so today is the beginning of week 2. Right? Today is the beginning of week 2. So we are actually in week 2 for you guys, but don't worry yourself, we'll cover the material, right? Week 1 we should have been looking at the module overview, introduction to the electrical safety, identification of hazards. Right, week 2, we'll move on to controlling electrical hazards and so on, right? So unit 1 really covers 3 weeks, right? And we look at the different safety aspects as it relates to electrical facilities, right? Unit 2 should begin in week 4, right? And unit 2 will cover 2 weeks, that's the electrical systems. And we look at certain building codes and so forth. NEC code, that's a National Electric Code that's used in England, not England, in Canada and US, while England uses the IEE Code of Practice, right, which is the British standard. We locally use the JS 61, which is our previous code, Jamaica standard. And now we use JS 361 as our code, right? In unit at week 6, so it's tentative to change based on our start, but I'm going to probably use up a lot of the tutorial time to make up probably half an hour out of the tutorial time or so, right? We'll be looking at our unit tests, which is test 1, which will cover unit 1 and unit 2. As for the format of the test, I'm not sure yet. We might do the test in our tutorial time and have lecture class for that particular week, right? Until then, we have unit 3, which will look at our mechanical systems. And our mechanical systems include such system as our plumbing system, which is our water supply system, or drain waste vent system. So person might have seen that abbreviation before, DWV. If you look at a piece of water pipe, that's a plastic pipe, you would see the DWV stamp on it, right? It means drain waste vent system, right? And we look at things such as escalators and elevators inside buildings, right? The mechanical systems will continue for 2 weeks, right? And we move on to our illumination and lighting, right? Illumination and lighting is really looking at interior and exterior lighting, right? So we'll be looking at that, see how it affects building functionality, such as like the different types of light rendering, such as daylight, warm light, the effect they have on buildings, right? Is a particular reason we use it. One situation I can think of immediately is in your supermarket. When you go in your supermarkets and you go to the gold provision aisle or produce aisle, you realize that they use warm light. Right, so when you look under the warm light and look at the nice apples and look at the mangoes and things, it look nice and delicate and, enticing. However, when you take it from the warm light and put it on that daylight setting, the same mango might look different. And you might say, well, but it's not the same mango we see inside the supermarket, right? But it's the same. That's how they use light rendering to have different effects, right? We will be also looking at, after that, we'll be doing our test number 2. So our unit test 2 will look at units 3 and 4, right? So units 3 and 4 will be covered by test 2. And so there are a number of tests, 2 tests, right? And then you'll be doing individual and group assignments. I don't say project because in this time now when we are staying away and social distancing, I don't want you to meet up at UTEC to do your project, right? And don't practice social distance, right? So we might be in assignments that we can split up and have each person take part in our assignments. All right, unit 5, we'll be looking at maintenance and repair. So we look at calculations that is involving reliability engineering, which will be covered under reliability-centered maintenance, right? There are a number of calculations we can do to find out our maintenance time and our repair time for different pieces of equipment. We'll be looking at those, right? We'll be looking at different types of maintenance in much more detail than before, right? And we'll be looking at the effects of an effective, or the advantages of an effective maintenance system, right? Or program. All right, unit 6 will be looking at our building management and sustainability, right? This is where we look at our different renewable energy systems that are integrated in these buildings. One particular one I think I can tell you often that I'll have you look into is the hybrid inverters, right? They are being used a lot now in residential situation and small commercial complexes, right? So we'll be looking at a hybrid inverter system and see how it works, right? Whether it be an assignment or a project or a group or individual assignment, we'll be looking at that. Now, another thing we want to look at is like common retrofit, like change, retrofitting, for instance, fluorescent light to LED lights and so forth. We'll be looking at that and see how it we manage energy efficiency, right? Also to mention that we'll be looking at how the material that the building is made of, whether it be concrete, drywall structure, that's the sheetrock, concrete boards. We look how it affects the cooling aspects of building and the air quality, right? So we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at the indoor air quality. So we'll be looking at the ISO codes for persons who don't know the international standards, right? Code as it relates to building management, all right? Facilities management. All right, so that will take us to week 13. I leave week 13 blank because any spillover then we might have to put it in week 13. So it's a tentative plan, guys. All right, and we'll talk about conduct and so forth. That's really for classroom, but we still have some conduct online. We want you to, if you want to say something, you can raise your hand, or you can just indicate by just saying a one word, but not try to talk over each other until you're recognized, right? So just try to be as diplomatic as possible. All right, so this is a quick breakdown of our assessment. Test 1 is 20%, test 2 is another 20%, individual assignment is 10%, and group assignment 10%, and your final assessment is 40%. No, based on what is happening now, your final assessment may be an exam paper, it might be an essay type paper, it can take different form, right? They tell us to be creative in terms of, because of how I know that last semester they asked some persons to actually come in and sit exams. I don't know if that will be the case for this semester, but as we go along, I'll let you know. All right, but our final assessment is 40% for the module. All right, and my note here to say that this is a plan and subject to change, right? We'll try to follow it as best as possible. All right, so that is it for module outline. Any questions so far, guys, before we move on to our lectures? No? Any questions? Speak now, so I can move on to the lectures. If you have any questions, just let me know. Yes?
Oh, you said you're going to give us the...
You were not coming in clear. Speak again.
You said we're going to access the outline.
Okay, all right. Currently, what should have been happening is that when you select the module and confirm the module, after 2 days, you should actually check your Moodle. That's when you go to your UTech Online and sign into your online account. Your UTech account, you should see it populate with the modules that you confirmed, right? Now, when you click on a module, you will see some persons are using Moodle, but because of the instability of Moodle, I have put a link in there to the Google Classroom and to your UTech, to the live sessions, which you are in now, right? However, I was informed yesterday, I've not checked it today. I spoke to a colleague today and they said it have not been done for their module. I don't know if it's done for my module, but you should have seen it in your UTech Online and you would have seen the links there, right? I am in the process of uploading the material to my Google Classroom. So once you have access to that Google Classroom link, now you will go to Google Classroom and in the classwork section, you will see the lecture recordings because I'm going to record the lectures. You will see all the different material you need. Your course outline, module outline, which you're looking at now. You will see the PowerPoint presentation in a PDF form, and you will see additional reading assignments or work for additional reading, right? All of that will be in your classroom. Understand now? Get that clear picture?
Sir, when did you send that link?
I did not send the link. I'm saying you should have gotten it in your Moodle. All right, it's not in your Moodle. I know that the faculty asked us to provide the classroom link today. I don't know if they are going to find some other way to get it to you students, to the students. But for me, because I didn't want to miss too much session for your live session, I sent it to your WhatsApp group. I gave somebody, I sent it to them and they post it in your class WhatsApp group, right? That's for the live session for now. Understand? So I've not sent any link to the Google Classroom yet. I'll do so by next week. If they haven't gotten it out or the UTech system is not up in terms of Moodle, you will see in the class in Moodle, by your next live session with me, you would have gotten the classroom. Whether I send it to your group, WhatsApp, or the school send it to you. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'll be, I'm going to stop share the outline with you now, and I'm going to share the PowerPoint presentation. All right. I did not want to start class today, but I have to start because I know that a lot of persons still having challenges in selecting modules. Right. So because we're going to have the recording on the PowerPoint slide, I'm actually starting today. That's the beauty about online. All right. They'll be able to go back and watch the recordings. All right, let me start the share for the presentation. All right, I'm going to put it in presentation view, go to share. All right, so are you able to see the presentation now?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we can begin our class. All right,
so this will be recorded, right?
Yeah, man, I'm actually going to the recording now. To start the recording, you should see something that says I am recording.
Okay, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Right? So now we are recording, right? So welcome again to our module, Electrical Facilities and Safety. For persons who are not seeing my name on your timetable, my name is Nathan Martin, right? I currently lecture and is also the technical officer for the technical staff, right? So currently I'm playing two roles, right? The technical officer role and a lecturer role. All right, moving on. All right, so this is just a brief overview of Unit 1, which we looked at in our outline. Week 1 and 2 will be looking at these topics, and week 3 will be looking at these topics, right? All right, electricity. Basically, electricity. What is electricity? What are electrical hazards, right? Also, basically, in any facility, you will encounter electrical hazard, whether it be at home, at work, at school, right? We, at some point throughout time, we would be encountering as electrical persons hazard as it relates to electricity, right? Now, some of the common hazards that can exist in an electrical situation, and the most common one is electric shock. Everybody afraid of shock, right? And just to tell you how a person is afraid of shock, I was called, I think last week from a past student. They were having, I think, some issues at home where they were having low voltage, and they called me to say, they measured the voltage in a panel box, right? But when they measured the voltage in a panel box, that individual, they were, the person was getting 95 volts on one leg. It's a 220 supply and 101 volts on another leg. So I said to that person, listen, your next step is to go at the service entrance, right? Anybody know what I'm talking about, the service entrance?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, please. What am I talking
about? That would have been the potted where the wire comes from the pole to the house.
Okay, so that's your potted, right? So everybody understand that? So that's our potted. So it's our service entrance, right? So at the service entrance, when they measured, they were getting 109 and 108, right? So that is within the 5% tolerance now. So my next step as an educator and also a contractor for persons who don't know, I also do electrical contract. I have a small company. Well, I've launched a small company, right? And I'm doing electrical work as well. So I tell the individual to check there, they were getting 108 and 109, right? The next step is to see if the neutral is actually connected properly. They say yes, it looked as if it was connected properly. But one thing I need to point out to you guys, actually they were scared of going to test at the pothead, right? Because that is coming straight from JPS. And unlike being in the panel where you have breakers, they were scared. So my advice to them was to turn off the main breaker. That's one way, because they don't want to be testing and making connections and breaking connections on load. Can anybody tell me why you don't want to make an electrical connection on load? No.
Can cause damage to the appliances and the...
That's one thing, yes. And then, the main thing that you're going to have when you try to connect things on load. Sparking. You ever try, when you try to connect a line circuit, what you have is sparking when it's on load. Because remember, the load is something that will be pulling current, right? And yes, you are going to be pulling current once the two wires get close enough and start to touch. The instant they start to touch, you are going to have a producer arc. And the danger of having a arc, if it's too high, is what? Electric burn. Flash arc burn, they call it, right? Very dangerous. So the first step is to de-energize the main breaker, right? The next step now after testing was to pull that neutral was connected using a 1-bolt clamp, what we call a 1-bolt clamp in the field, right? Now, that 1-bolt clamp for the neutral, and let me tell you this, most of the time when you're having problems like this, 90% of the time it's going to be the neutral, right? The neutral is not taped when you connect the neutral in a system. That's from your twisted pair, the 2 black wires that come to your house and the shine one. The shine one without any insulation is a neutral for persons who are unaware, right? When you buy a brand new 1-bolt clamp, some 1-bolt clamp come with a little grease inside it. That grease is really the purpose it serves to lock out the moisture from the conductor, right? And because the conductor is aluminum, after a period of time it tends to oxidize, right? And lose it and have a build-up of resistance there. And that build-up of resistance is what causes the voltage drop to be high and you are not getting the proper voltage inside the panel. Right? So that my advice to that individual was actually to pull the 1-bolt clamp, right? Clean up the 1-bolt clamp, get a little grease, put it back, apply it to the 1-bolt clamp and make the connection. At the end of that process, the corner say everything is fine now in the panel, right? So experience teaches a lot, right? And that is one of the reasons I love this module, right? It helps me to bring my experience in the field to the students in the classroom. So that's one thing I'm going to bring to your class now. Yes, I'm going to teach you the theory, but I'm also going to teach you the practice. What is being practiced in the field, right? As much as I can, right? Up to this day, I have students that take this course module last year, and still calling me and asking me for advice, right? So I try to give them as much advice, or try to pass on the knowledge, right? All right. Moving on, we said the electrical team spend a lot of time on their hands and knees, right? In confined spaces, on ladders, scaffold towers, right, for persons who don't know, and temporary safety systems, right? Now, one of the reasons for this, right, is because of the nature of our work. If you're at JPS, if you are in the field, you might have to go on the high voltage line, you have to go on the medium voltage line and all of these things. You're being a bucket truck, you're probably being a ladder, right? And the first thing in electrical or in any discipline is to be safe, to keep yourself safe and to keep others around you safe, right? So we look at some of the common faults that exist with all of these activities, right? We can have slips, right? We can have trips and we can have fall from height, right? Now, receiving an electric shock at height involves two processes. You getting the electric shock and the fall from electric shock. Because if you're on a ladder and you get shocked, more than likely you're going to fall off the ladder, right? So that's one reason why we need to have safe, right? And we said to make our work environment safe, there are laws and regulations that are put in place, right? One such law that is put in place is known as a statutory law. Can anybody tell me what a statutory law means?
There's no.
Yes, Mr. Morrison? No?
I was saying government laws.
Yes, governmental laws, right? So a statutory law is really acts of parliament, right? So they go into parliament where you listen on the news a lot of time and they say they have to vote, the house have to vote, and then it's passed and then it becomes law, right? Statutory law do carry penalties, right? Harsh jail time or a fine, right? So these are laws that we must follow, right? And another type of law is our non-statutory law, right? So a non-statutory law really now is our code of practice. So we're going to look at and what I mean by code of practice before we get into the health and safety at work. A code of practice is something that has been passed on from generation to generation. For instance, you might know or you might have learned when you were doing engineering tools, right? When you do the workshop aspect of engineering tool, that the instructor might tell you that you need to strip approximately 1 inch of conductor, right? So that's a code of practice. There is no law to that. But practice dictates that you strip approximately 1 inch, you twist clockwise and you wrap clockwise around the screw. Now, all of this is for a reason. By twisting clockwise and wrapping clockwise around the screw, when you tighten the screw, because the screw is tighten clockwise, you ever hear the term righty tight and lefty loosey. That's the whole aspect of that, right? Conventionally, screws tighten clockwise. Conventionally, screws are not loosen anti-clockwise, right? So when you wrap the conductor clockwise around the screw, when you tighten, it aids in pulling the wire under the screw. When you wrap it anti-clockwise and you tighten, right, clockwise, it pushes the force pushes the conductor from under the screw, right? So this is a code of practice, something that we learn, right, over a period of time. And it's passed down through the ages and we practice. Yes?
So, sir, you're saying that the wire should be wrapped in a clockwise direction on the screw?
In a clockwise direction on the screw. No, when the government inspector come to inspect your premises, these are some of the things that they look for, whether it be non-statutory or statutory, and they'll point it out to you, right, as a electrician. But as a practicing person, whether it be electrician or electrical engineer, once you are practicing in your field, these are things that you will gain experience over a period of time. So for instance, if they come to pass a building, so for instance, you leave come when? June, and you finish and you get a work in a contracting firm to supervise a number of projects. It might be a project to install a motor, it might be a commercial building, the rewiring, or refurbishing, and you have to supervise the electricians, and you have to supervise practicing engineers. you as a supervisor, you know, and it will happen, right? Because one of my first job in leaving university was as an operations manager, right? So it can happen because when you graduate, especially if you graduated at honors, persons expect you to have certain qualities, right? And this is one of the reasons why this is the second year we are teaching this course, right? So it's a new course. And the first year it was taught, I was the one that taught it. I designed the module, I designed the outline, designed the syllabus, right? One of the reasons for this module, they were asking for it in the fields because they said when the persons leave, when they come in the field, whether it be in the private contracting or public sector, whatever, they don't have enough experience, enough knowledge to function properly, right? It takes them a while. So the purpose of this module is really to get you thinking about work and what to practice in the field, right? All right, so moving on, one of these, the first statutory regulation we need to look at is the Health and Safety at Work Act. Now, this regulation or this statutory regulation was voted into practice in 1974, right? This is one of the oldest type of statutory law as it relates to safety, right? Because before this, persons were being injured and they don't know who to put the onus or the burden of onus on, whether it be the employee or the employee, right? So because of that, they sat down and developed this act. And they said the purpose of this act is really to provide a legal framework, right? So they get you started things. So there are acts. This is known as one of the enabling acts, right? So the Health and Safety Act is the enabling act. And what it does by enabling other acts it encompasses other acts, right? So like the Electricity at Work regulation would be a part of the Health and Safety at Work Act, right? So it allows for you to constantly look at different aspects and develop other safety measures and acts and so forth and pass them, right? So it's an enabling act, right? It is basically to protect you as a worker and to protect the employee and to protect members of the public. If you realize I put it in bold, right? All right, the second act we want to talk about is the Electricity at Work Act. Now, why this act? Because of the nature of this module, being that it's electrical facility, will be working around electricity. And in working around electricity, this act now forces both the employer and the employee to have certain things in place, right? So you realize in bullet 2, it says this act or regulation require precautions to be taken against the risk of death or personal injury from electricity in work activities, right? So it forces them now, whether you using doing the activity or the person who engage you to do the activity, it forces them to take certain precautions, right? An electrical installation wired in accordance with the IEE regulation, right, which is a British standard 7671. So that BS there stand for British standard. The JS in Jamaica local code is Jamaica standard, right? So in the British standard 7671 will also meet the requirements of the Electricity at Work regulation. So what they are saying is that once you follow these regulations, whether it be the JS21 or the NEC, the National Electric Code of America and Canada, right, or the IEE regulation, right, it will meet the EWR, which is the Electricity at Work regulation, right, once you follow it. Now, the third regulation, statutory regulation we want to look at is the Electricity Safety, Quality and Continuity Regulation. Now, you realize that this is a current act, right? It was established in 2002, so it's fairly current. Now, one of the purpose of this act, right, it tells JPS that, listen, if you give the customers bad quality, they can sue. If you damage your customer's appliance, they can sue you, right? So this app really put the burden on the supply company to maintain a certain quality, right? They will not normally concern the electrical contractor, except in that in the base, these regulations which set out the earthing requirements of the supply, right? So in this app, the only way you can blame the contractor is by not having an earthing. But that is very hard to not do, because once you submit the building, whether it be a factory, whether it be a big industrial plant, if you supply that to the government electrical inspector, the GEI, right? That's the name out there, GEI, Government Electrical Inspector. That's one of the first things they are going to check for when they come to the site, the earthing. Whether it be a substation, it have to be earthed. Whether it be a big building, right? It have to be earthed. Whether it be a small building, it have to be earthed. Earthing is one of the most important part of any installation, any facility. Can anybody tell me why earthing is that important? I don't want Mr. Morrison to answer. He's answering too much questions. What about others? Miss Michael, can you tell me why earthing is one of the most important part of any electrical facility? It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, you know. We just want to engage, right? I just want to see if you're thinking about anything.
Okay, sir. You hear me right?
We're not hearing you, Miss Michael.
Oh.
You're very low. And what else here, Miss Michael?
Hello?
Yeah,
Oh,
I hear you.
I'm hearing you now.
Okay. In case of overvoltages, the current is sent to earth where it can be discharged safely.
Repeat what you say. You were a bit unclear.
In case of overvoltages, the current can be sent to the earth where it can be
So in case of,
discharged safely.
so you're saying that the earth provides a path for the current to flow, whether it be a short circuit current to flow, right? No,
Yes.
if that short circuit current is unable to flow, what will happen?
It will go to the load, sir.
Repeat?
It will go to the load.
It will go to the load, yes, but what I want to get from you is that if you are unable to, short circuit current is unable to flow, what will happen is that the wires, which is the conductors, will get hot. You ever feel that when you're ironing or the conductor get hot, right? You have a lot of current flowing. Now, if you have a short circuit, what a short circuit does is actually have a high current flow, right?
Sir, so that means it could damage the insulation, sir?
Yes, and one thing, if you don't have the path for that current to flow, the breaker will not trip.
Okay, sir.
And if the breaker don't trip, what will happen after that?
They'll send back a feedback into your appliance them.
As well as cause why you say the big word, you know, what's the big word, what it will cause?
Ash.
Fire?
Fire, yes, electrical fire. Electrical fire is one of the hardest fire to put out, right?
Oh, okay, sir.
Yes, if the breakers don't trip, you know, what will happen is that you're going to have a circulating current, as you guys state, and that circulating current then cause anything it's circulating to overheat. And when things overheat, you're going to have a heat being generated, right? And that at certain temperature, remember, for a fire to burn, what you need? Anybody? For a fire to burn, you need
Oxygen.
Oxygen, heat, and a material.
Oh, so you have the material that will flow through. You have oxygen in the surrounding, and now you provide what?
The spark.
So you burn. All right. So you see, you guys know the stuff already now. That's why I'm bringing it out. Right? So that's one of the main purpose of the earthing installation is for the high current to flow so the breakers can trip. because the breakers are rated at particular values, right? 15 amp, 20 amp, 30 amp, 40 amp, 50 amp, 60 amp, and so on, right? So the breakers are rated at values. These ratings are the maximum current rating for the breakers. When you have a short circuit, right, it will go beyond the rating of the breaker, and the breaker physical mechanism will trip, right? So there is a tripping mechanism that is sensitive to current, because when current flow through a conductor, you have three effects exist. Can anybody tell me the three effects from all the engineering that you have done from year one? Anybody?
Repeat the question, sir.
All right. When an electrical current flows through a conductor, there are three effects. What are the three effects?
Or force field and a current.
You have a magnetic field, yes.
You have the force.
Repeat.
The force, sir. You hearing me?
I'm not hearing you. You're very low. I'm not hearing you, Miss Mike. You're coming through low to us. All right. So we have the magnetic field. Continue, Mr. Wilson.
Electric field.
Yeah, you have the magnetic field, right?
Yeah.
You have a heat, temperature effect, and you have a chemical effect. Those are the three effects that you'll have when you pass a current through a conductor, right? You have a magnetic effect. So the electric effect will lead to these three conditions: magnetic effect, temperature, and a chemical reaction, right? So those are the three effects of a current passing through a conductor. So what the breaker does is utilize these.
Yeah, could you repeat that?
You have a magnetic effect, right? A temperature effect, right? And you have a chemical effect. Right? These are the three main effects of a current passing through a conductor. Right? The heating effect, you utilize that in your irons at home or your hot plate and anything that generates heat, right? Your chemical effect, you utilize that in your light bulbs. Remember those filament bulbs that you have, and the magnetic effect is when you have electromagnetics and your motors and so forth, right? So from when you were doing electric drive, you know that when you pass the current through the conductor, you have the magnetic field set up on all of that in your motor and it causes it to spin, right? So those are the effects that we utilize. Now, we utilize these effects in a breaker. When we move on further and examine the internal aspects of breakers, you will see that these effects cause a breaker to physically trip. Now, one thing I need to point out, this is beside the lesson, other from the lesson. When a breaker trip, can anybody tell me how to reset a trip breaker?
So you fully turn it on or off, and fully turn it off and then turn it back on.
Okay, all right. So everybody hear that you turn off the breaker first. So a trip breaker will be in the center. You have to turn it off before you can turn it on. Right? So you cannot just go and try to turn it on. Actually, persons call them also they have no light and then breaker trip on them can't turn it on, right? So if they don't have the knowledge, say, listen, you need to turn it off before you turn it on. You are charging $1,500 just to drive, or $2,000 because you drive out the gas, you go to them house, you turn off them brake and you turn it on back for them, so they have to pay you $2,000, right? So that's
no, for electrician, them come and go on like them do something in the cars, they know what to look now.
Yeah, so that's what I tell you about the knowledge, right? They have to pay for your knowledge, right? Knowledge is money, right? You spend money to get your knowledge, so you have to charge money when persons rely on your knowledge. And the most important thing I can tell you as an electrical engineer is when you have the know-how and the theoretical knowledge, right? When you have the know-how and the theoretical knowledge, right, is a good, they work well together, right? And most of the time, when you look at the persons who start the companies, these persons have a lot of technical experience and a lot of theoretical knowledge, right? if you want to be an engineer that probably does do paperwork alone, a lot of time you will end up working for these guys over a period of time, right? Until they wise up and say, listen, I need to get the practical knowledge. I need to start my own thing, right? So, all right, so we'll move on to our fourth statutory regulation, right? I am a bit behind because now it's 8 o'clock. The fourth regulation looks at the management of health and safety act. Now, what this takes care of is how you manage injuries at the workplace. You realize that most industry, for persons who have been in the industry, whether it be an electrical industry, a construction industry, one thing that they have to put up is a visible safety system, right? They have to put up safety signs. This is what forces them to do so. They have to put up a safety policy. So when you go in a lot of industry, the first thing you will see at the door, for instance, if you go somewhere like Petrodrum, once you enter the gate, they tell you you see the safety policy on the big gate that you're walking through, right? So this act is what forces them to do that, right? They must put other systems in place, whether it be engineering control or administrative control, right? So this forces them to do that. You have to, every time you buy a new machine, you have to look at the safety aspect, put the safety measures in place before you commission the machine, right? No. And we now have come to our provision and use of work equipment regulation. Now, this regulation forces your employer to purchase good quality equipment. Now, because we are living in this age and time, a lot of our equipment are coming from some place that they call China, this country that they call China, not to bash them, because how China manipulates the market or how they look at the market, that you will always have persons that will not want to buy the most expensive equipment, which might be one of the better equipment. So they look at three different quality. You have the inferior, you have the mid-range, and you have the high quality, right? And these quality, based on what you are willing to pay, it will display that quality. So if you want to be cheap, you're going to get a cheap quality, right? For instance, if you're using an extension, anybody buy this extension downtown and you see them selling and them say cheap, you're probably using something or using a saw, something like that. You start to use the saw, the extension get hot and it burn up, right? Because the insulation is not good and it can't manage the current that it is pulling, but yet still they are selling an extension to do that type of work, right? You might buy a drill, right? You buy one of those cheap hammer drill, and by next week it damaged and you can't get any parts for it. For instance, if you go buy Delta Supply in Jamaica, if you are not using like a Makita or a Hilti brand or these big brand, you can't get parts from them. They're going to tell you that they only stock for certain brands, right? And if you're a cheap employer and buy these brands, you might last 2 weeks and then you need to buy one, right? All right. The control of substances hazardous to health, right? This actually comes under, like for electrical person, we talk about using fluorescent tubes. You know that fluorescent tubes have mercury. This regulation forces employers and employees to dispose of them in a healthy fashion, then, right? Not to expose us all, right? And the asbestos act usually fall under that, but asbestos have a new act by itself, right? These are the substances that are hazardous to health. Even fiberglass. When you are using a fiberglass ladder, after a period of time, the fiberglass start to break down and it start to itch. This regulation forces the employer to change that ladder, right, out of service at a period of time, right? So for instance, you might say somebody that work at Digicel or work at Flow and say, boy, them have a ladder they're selling it, right? What they do is purchase it from the employer, because persons always try to make money off things. The employers write it off the books, they probably purchase it for say $5,000 or probably $10,000 and they are selling you it for $20,000. Because I know for a brand new fiberglass ladder, extension ladder, it will run you a little bit about $50,000 and you gladly buy it and you use it. But every time you use it, you realize that your hands start to itch because the fiberglass has broken down, right? So these are the regulations that forces big companies like Digicel and Flow and JPS and things to change their work equipment, even the vehicle that they drive, right? Once it's part of your working condition, you have to change it after a period of time. So what JPS do to get over that cost now, what they do is lease the vehicle from a company that is known as Amico. So what Amico do now, they realize that this is how the world is going. They buy a lot of vehicles, they lease them to JPS, they lease them to Flow, they lease them to Digicel, and they provide servicing for them. So when it's service time, all the JPS employee need to do is just drive it to Amico, they service it, they make the recording that they service this vehicle at this particular time, and so forth and so forth. Right, when the vehicle is out, Amico come and say, no, they have a mass clearance sale on vehicles that were pre-owned, right? And they sell them. A lot of time, the persons that drive them get them to buy because of links, right? So that's one way of manipulating the market and changing all the used equipment for new equipment, yes?
But sir, by them time the mileage not done up on the vehicle.
Yeah, but the vehicle still look good. You notice that Jamaicans don't buy vehicle based on mileage. There's a few persons buy vehicle based on mileage. What do buy vehicle based on? Looks, don't it?
Well,
Once a boy that van here look good, man, it looks sturdy, it look like it's in a good condition, right? But the mileage, right? So they still make a money off it. So that's why they can't sell you for too much money, because the mileage is high. So what some people do now as employees, they buy the vehicle for a little and nothing, right? So they might buy a high mileage vehicle for say 300,000, and they sell it back to you for say 600 or 800,000 and make a money. Right? So this is one way how the employees utilize the system and make money off the system. Cool? Alright, so let's have the personal protective equipment, right? So this now regulation states that the employer must provide you with PPE, and you as the employee must wear your PPE as it is supposed to, right? So when they give you your PPE, they're supposed to show you, right, and give you the necessary knowledge to use the PPE, right? And you should wear the PPE and use it with the knowledge that they provide, right? So the last line, employers must provide PPE free of charge, and employees must make use of it for their protection, right? So some of the times a PPE you can have is eye protection, foot protection, head protection, safety harness, life jackets, that's a high visibility clothing, right? So that's like the vest that they love to wear, right? The high visibility vest, it's for your safety, right? It makes you easy to spot, right? So like Kingston Wharf, you have to have a high visibility vest, you have to have an helmet, and you have to have your safety shoes before you can enter the compound, right? All right, non-statutory regulations. So some of the non-statutory regulations involve like, as I said before, these are really code of practice, right? And really, they are there for you to work safe, and not everything will be captured under the statutory regulation, right? So these things too can cause harm, right? Can cause death. So what we do as electrical persons is that we must comply, and that is why it's in bold, right? So what the government electrical inspector do is force you to comply with code of practice, because they said they know that this code of practice basically is there to help you. Now, I put City and Guilds here because it's getting wide in Jamaica, right? And a lot of our courses out here, our trust courses are model of the City and Guilds, and it's gaining traction again in Jamaica. So it said that this City and Guilds is really one of the main drivers of the IEE regulation in England, right? I remember England was at one point a world power, and that is why our JS21 is modeled from the IEE regulation. The NEC regulation is modeled from the IEE regulation. So
Sir,
yes.
just a question. Are we still using the JS21? Or are we using the new one that they just
provided? The new one, but the new one is just an update, so it's not like they change anything they might add, because we have a lot of renewable energy systems in place, and we have a lot of different things coming online as engineers. So what they do over a period of time, each time they review the book, the new code of practice is really what is being used if you go to purchase it. But because persons still know it as JS21, that's why I use the term, even myself, right? But once you go and buy it, is a new copy version you're going to get.
Okay.
All right? Yes. All right. The IE regulation, right, British Standard 7671, right, really put the onus on these standard principles, right, such as design, selection, erection, inspection, and testing of electrical installations, right? The regulations are non-statutory, meaning that these are code of practice, but you must follow them, right? All right, so to comply with these type of regulation, we talk about permanent and temporary installation of buildings, right? Such as agricultural and architectural premises, right? Construction sites, caravans, and so forth, right? So we say that these regulation is really considered as the electrician Bible or the engineer's Bible, right? Once we are talking about, and you realize a lot of time we use electrician and engineer. Once I tell a person that you're an electrical engineer, they believe that you're an electrician. An electrician is really, and why we need to know these things as electrical engineer, because most of the time you're going to be supervising guys that are doing electrician work, right? As engineers, most of the time, the technicians there probably just have an art certification, right? They don't have an engineering degree sometime. And they hire you as the engineer to supervise these guys. So you need to know these stuff that they can supervise them properly, right? Actually, they laugh off of you.
Or else they will take a idiot, sir.
Yeah, they want to take a
they only know the book.
That is the whole point, and that is why this module, as I tell you, is in effect, because we want to teach as much as we can to see how your engineering knowledge tie into these facilities. All right? All right. So the health and safety responsibilities by the employers and by the employee, right, must be followed, and they must have the systems in place, right? So these are the right, so I'll give you a brief. There are a lot more than these. I'll just give you the main points here. Guys, I can't put all of these in the slide. You will not know all of them, but you must have an idea what an employer must do and what an employee must do, right? Make the workplace safe and without risk to health, right? Provide a health and safety policy statement. That are the big statement where you say the entrance of most commercial and industrial settings, right? Once you have more than 5 employees, Provide adequate information, instruction and training and supervision, meaning that if you have health and safety procedures, most of the time you get on-the-job training, right? So they might not be taken in a classroom to teach you it, but they will point it out to you daily on the job until you are off probation. So while you're on probation in a lot of industrial settings, a lot of workplace, you will be assigned to a training person, and that person will give you on-the-job training, right? Provide any protective clothing or equipment. So like a lot of industries out here, they give you safety shoes, they give you a safety hat, they give you the visibility vest, all of these things. When they are worn, you turn them in and they give you a new one, right? So it might not be yearly, right? It might not be, it can be on a frequent basis based on how your equipment is worn, right? Because if you are, for instance, I'm going to give you a JPS, for instance. If you are a linesman, right, you are going to use your safety shoes. Your safety shoes is going to get a lot more work than somebody that is a supervisor that does come supervise the site, gone, or probably come to see what you are doing, gone on another location, and return to see what you are doing, because you are there moving up, climbing, right, climbing the poles, all day, right? So your shoes might be worn much quicker. You just take it into stores, they change it, they give you an next one, and that's it. All right. Report certain injuries, disease, and dangerous occurrences. Dangerous occurrences is very important, guys. When you are in the workplace, if you have a near miss, that is what we call a near miss. Report all near miss, because a near miss means that there is something, a hazard exists, and you need to take care of it. The next person or the next employee might not have a near miss, all right? So you need to take care of it. Provide adequate first aid facility. I know, like for cement company, they have their medical center out there because of the whole, the lot of hazardous material they have to encounter. They do, I think it's every 3 months they do medical, right? Some industry might do medical every 6 months, and this is really to protect their employer and catch anything in an early stage, right? So that's very important. All right, these are some other points, right? Undertake precaution against fires, right? Provide adequate means of escape. If you realize this was one thing that we did by engineering UTEC, they put up a lot of escape staircases, the red staircases that are made of iron. That's because UTEC is considered a plant, right? So even though it's a university, because we are housing a lot of persons, right, it is considered as a plant. And if it's a plant, you must have adequate means of escape, right? You must have your escape routes mapped out, right? We put in a lot of fire extinguishing equipment. And to tell a persons don't know the use of them, they cut off the nozzle of the fire hoses, right? So somebody go around and cut off the nozzles, right, to put persons in danger. Our next point is to ensure that plant, equipment, and machinery are safe, and that safe system and procedures of work are put in place. So, for instance, like starting a machine when you go into the workshop when you are doing engineering tools, they tell you that first, if you are, for instance, you are using the grinder, right, they might tell you that first you need to have on a face shield. You don't wear gloves when you're using the grinder because the gloves can catch under the wheel, right, and all of these things, and they tell you how to hold them, show you how to hold the material when you're using the grinding machine and so on, right? So these are procedures that I'm talking about. They might tell you that you don't stand behind the lathe machine, right? That's another type of procedure that they put in place. All right, another point is to ensure that articles and substances are moved, stored, and used safely, right? First thing, when you will practice good house cleaning, right? So when you were probably doing engineering tools, and I can just draw on these because I know that you have done these modules before, right? When you finish the workshop exercise, whether it be mechanical workshop or electrical workshop, they always give you a little dusting and tell you that you need to provide proper house cleaning, right? Housekeeping. No, the purpose of that is that you might, if you don't practice it, you're not going to do it. You go to somebody's residence or you go to a commercial setting, you do some work and you leave everything all over the person's walk, right? Or you have your tools scattered around the work site, the person might be moving around and they slip on the tool, you become liable, right? So if we don't provide and control our working environment, right, then we'll pose a hazard to other persons and ourselves. Keep dust, fumes, and noise under control. So that's why you're given an ear muff. So if you can't remove the noise, you have to provide the PPE to remove it, right? Display a current certificate as required by the Employees Liability Act, right? So they have to display a safety thing, certificate, and say this workplace, this environment is passed as a electrical facility or a manufacturing facility, right? So they had to prove to them that they have the necessary systems in place. All right, the employee now. I think I'm going to stop at soon because I'll give you time to rest and then next week we'll pick up again, right? Take reasonable care of their own health and safety, and that others who might be affected by what you do or may not do, right, while at work. So what they're basically saying, look out for your neighbors, look out for members of the public. You have your co-workers, right, look out for them. In this case, you are your brother's keeper in electrical, right? So we don't want you killing your co-worker because probably you see his girlfriend come check him at work and she look nice. No, we want to take care of him, right? So he can go home to him in person because it should look nice, right? Cooperate with your employer on all matters relating to health and safety. I don't like the word cooperate because they might want you to do something and you might see another way that is much better to put a safety measure in place. So I always tell students, whether it is in this module and that you and your employer is really in a work relationship, and they can listen to you as somebody that is using the machine. So for instance, you're using a piece of equipment and you say a way to protect yourself in a much better fashion. You say to them, and the employer should take your suggestion into consideration, and if it's better, implement it, right? A lot of employers are dictators, just unfortunately, but that is so, but that is the truth, right? Not interfere with or misuse anything provided for health and safety or wellness in the workplace. One thing that this can bring into mind for me, guys, and it's immediate, like the little ungrinding machine, a lot of time they come with guards, and to get a deeper cut, what they do is remove the guards, right? This is in place for a critical reason, you know, all right, and they move it. You might have a machine at work, and because they want to put a bigger material on the machine, you move the guard, right? One day now, the machine, the thing probably get spin off the machine if it's a rotating machine and hit somebody, then it become liable as the employers. Right? So you as an employer must know that if the machine come with a guard, you need to use a guard, right? Report any identify health and safety problem, meaning if you see something, report it to your supervisors immediately, right? So the necessary actions can be put in place. All right. I am going to just go run through this slide. Identify the hazard. What is a hazard? Yes.
All right. When you're finished, I just want after you're finished, we'll ask a question.
Okay. All right. All right, so we say hazard is something with the potential to cause harm to people or equipment, right? And I must stress equipment because you as an operator can be a hazard to the equipment, right? If you remove the equipment guard, you're being a hazard to the equipment, you know, because you're not using it in the proper way. So you're both damaging the equipment as well as putting hazard in place for other persons, right? For example, chemicals, electricity are working above ground. So I'll give you some of the typical activities that they might be doing in a workplace. Receiving materials, the potential hazard is lifting and carrying, right? Everybody should know that there's a proper lifting procedure. We're going to look at that when we get there, right? So we try to keep our back as straight as possible and bend at your knees and lift, right? So you lift with your hips and not with your back. Good? Carrying equipment, don't carry nothing in front of you that will obstruct your view, right? So anything, so like boxes that are stuck, once it's obstructing your view, that's a hazard in itself. You're unable to see it. Stocking and storing materials, right? So you might have things falling. When you stock things, it might not stock properly. So there's a stocking procedure in that you put the largest and the heaviest material or equipment at the bottom, and then you stop going up, right? The lightest one should be on top, right? And we don't stop above certain height because the center of gravity will not be there to keep it balanced. Moving of people, right? We have slip, trips, and falls, right? Which is one of the most common type of hazards. Slips, right now, I might get up in my house and water spill on the floor and I don't see it and I slip, right? So when I be in a workplace, in your house, right, walk into your gate, slip, trips, and fall is one of the most common type of hazard, right? So you might not even be doing a working activity, right? Building maintenance, you might be working at height or confined space. Working at height will run the risk of falling, while in confined space will run the risk of suffocation, right? You have a lot of persons that are claustrophobic, right? So we try to, when working in confined spaces, guys, always ensure that somebody is there with you, right? So don't work in a confined space or at height by yourself, right? Very important. Movement of vehicles like the Kingston Wharf, right? That is one of the most busiest areas, and you have a lot of collision, and that is why on the wharf it's only one way, right? So they try to reduce collision by having one-way traffic. So if you are moving from point A to point B and it's 100 meters apart, you have to go around in circle and come to point B, right? If you have already passed point B, you cannot reverse. They don't tolerate reversing there, right? You go the one way and come on, because a lot, they have the strata, right, which is the container machines, right, and they have small vehicles, they have trailers, right, they have trucks moving around on the compound, so it's very critical, right? Yes, there are questions now, Mr. Wilson, before I move on. Mr. Wilson, your question? Still have the question for me?
Yes, sir. Sorry about that. Sir, I wasn't at the earlier part of the class.
I'm not hearing you, you're low.
You hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
Yeah, I said I was not at the earlier part of the class. I don't know if you had discussed how will we be assessed, like in terms
What
of...
will be, you get low again, what is it? Repeat.
Yeah, I said I missed the earlier part of the class. I don't know if you had discussed how will we be assessed in terms of tests, anything at all in terms of...
We did the module, we went through the module outline.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was not there, so I'm not sure if you had sent out the outline in a group or something where I can get access to it.
No, because currently you don't have the link for the classroom. The classroom link will be sent shortly, meaning that I'd explained this before. but the Moodle platform is what should be used to access the class, but because the Moodle platform is not working currently, and
Yes, sir.
the meeting link, that is this link for the live session, I sent it to someone in your class and they posted it in the class group. Now, if the Moodle is not up by Monday, I'm going to send the Google Classroom link, right?
Yes, sir. I would rather that because I can't get access to Moodle from last week. It
Yeah,
kicked
well,
me
I
out.
realize that. That's why I'm saying if it's not up by Monday, I'm going to send it directly to your WhatsApp group.
Okay,
So
sir.
when
All right.
in your
Understood.
WhatsApp group, you can download the materials from the Google Classroom.
Okay, sir.
Yes. All right. I am going to leave the lesson here at slide 20 and for today. So I'm not going to take it to 9 o'clock for today. Right. Next week we'll be utilizing both the tutorial session, guys, and we'll be utilizing the lecture session. This is just an introduction, so I'll leave it as hazard for you to be able to have the definition for an hazard, right? And we went through some typical regulation, guys, both statutory regulation and non-statutory. And we said that the statutory is things that are passed by law, and we said the non-statutory is really code of practice, COP, right? And there are some things that employers must do, and there are some things that employees must do. I will look at some statutory regulation. I will give an example of the code of practice, right? So next week we'll move on from here, where we'll further break down identification of hazards and how we mitigate against them, right? That's how we prevent them. Right, so by week 3, I should be completing safety at work. All right, so I must say here at this point that have a nice evening, guys. If you have any question, you would have gotten I'm going to send my contact number to the group. I'm going to ask a person to put it in your group. That's if you have any question. Why? I know that a lot of persons don't like to give out their numbers, but we are in a situation where everything is online. I don't have a consultation hour because I might not be able to this. Yes.
So what you can do is, sir, just let them add you to the group. So therefore, if anybody asks anything, it can benefit everybody else.
All right, but you know why I don't want to do that? Let me tell you, when I was studying, right?
Okay, sir.
With my masters, a lot of time we want to talk stuff, and the lecture was in the WhatsApp group. And you can't talk when you want to talk, right?
All right, sir. I understand, sir.
So I don't encourage you adding me to the WhatsApp group, right? I want you guys to talk when you want to talk. Right, but you can call me, you can WhatsApp me differently, right? And I'll answer questions if any. Right? As we go along, I tell you that I don't know the format of the test yet, whether I'm going to use multiple choice or short answer or essay type, but I'll tell you, give you adequate time and inform you what type of test it will be, whether it be multiple choice or a mixture of all three. I'll let you know that. But from the outline, it will indicate to you when the test is. All right? As I said before, it's subject to change. So what you need to look at is when we finish the units, right? So test 1 will cover unit, I think 1 and 2, while test 2 will cover unit 3 and 4, and your final assessment will cover some from the other units and 2 last units, right? So, and you will get assignments. I'll give you adequate time to do your assignments. I'll show you have individual assignments and you have group assignments to be done, right? So I'll give you adequate time. I'll post it in time and give you adequate time to fulfill your task. All right, so have a nice evening, right? I am going to stop the recording at this point. What I'll do is also post the recording in your Google classroom. So I'll post the recording. I'll also post the presentation in a PDF form. I will post any additional material. I try to make the slides as compact as I can. So like Safety at Work probably carry 80 slides, right? Why? Because I know a lot of persons, myself as an engineer, we don't like to go and read the textbook unless we must have to. We don't like to read other stuff. I still encourage you to go and read it because a lot of time, the beauty about this is that the lecture classes are being recorded live sessions, so you can go back and watch the recording. But I still encourage you to read your additional materials, right? Go through your slides, right? So by this Friday, even though I am not going to complete safety, I will still put up the PDF version. I don't normally like to put it up. I normally like to, when I finish the lessons, finish with the unit, I put up the slide because a lot of time I might put it up and I modify it, right? So I might put up the PDF version and when I'm going through it before I come to class, I might say, oh, I need to add something here, and it's added, right? But I still put it up because a lot of time, because we're being recorded and it's not big changes sometimes, I'll still put up the PDF version. Okay, guys? All right, so have a nice night. I'll try to say if there are
one question before you go.
Yes.
As it relates to the group project, what's the nature of the project? Is it like a
project assignment?
Oh, it's one assignment, a group assignment.
Yeah.
And you know the amount of persons you want in the group?
Repeat?
Do you have an idea of the number of persons you want in the group?
No, because the number of persons is not yet finalized for the sessions yet.
Okay,
But
sir.
I've not set it yet. It's something that I'll set based on the size of the class. Right? So for instance, the class is 20 persons. Right? I might say 2 persons, right, and give you some questions to do. Right, or I might give, as I say, give you a small exercise to do, or I might say 3 persons if it is in a larger session. So it all depends on how many persons at the time. By next week, we should be in a stage where we can finalize the class size, and then I'll set the, start setting the assignments. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other question? No? Yes? Maybe so, no question? Talk, you must wrap it up if you have any question.
No question.
All right, so next week then, 7 o'clock this time, and then Thursday, Thursday is what time? Thursday on my thing is 5 o'clock. I don't know if that's going to change for the tutorial, but we're not going to have a tutorial tomorrow. Or we should have a tutorial. I think we should have a tutorial now because we can finish up some work, right? What do you guys say? Tutorial tomorrow? No? Realize I know I have the class tomorrow, All right.
Tomorrow at what time? Because this is the
On my
session.
timetable, I say your tutorial session is for 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock?
Yes. All right, so for now, we'll do away with the tutorial for tomorrow. But come next week, by next week, everything should be finalized. We will also use a tutorial session next week. All right, so we'll do some questions. We look at some, I'll send you a tutorial sheet. As soon as the Google Classroom is up, you will see the tutorial sheet and so on with questions and so on, right? And I will do some amount of lecture if possible in the tutorial sessions. All right, so see you next week, right? Have a nice evening, right? Sleep well, don't stay up too late. You have to get enough rest so you can retain what you learn, all right? As if you go to bed 3 and wake up 5, you're not retaining much, right? You get enough rest, and then wake up fresh. All right? So take care, guys. I'm leaving now.
Okay, so later.
All right, bye.
All right.